Okay, welcome to this episode of Colorado Films, the podcast. Today, I am super excited to have Mike Scalisi on our show. Mike is an award-winning video editor of everything from corporate videos to broadcast television and shorts and feature-length films. Mike uses Adobe Premiere as well as Adobe After Effects for professional quality motion graphics and special effects. Moving to directing has been a natural extension of the storytelling skills developed in editing, conceptualizing a strong vision for the style and context of a video, and being able to translate that from production to post. Mike was the editor of the feature documentary The Cove, which won the 2009 Academy Award for Best Documentary and the Sundance Audience Choice Award, as well as over 40 other awards at film fests around the world. Mike, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You're actually the first Academy Award winner I've had. So
I don't personally have one on the shelf back here. I would have it back there if I did. But
I saw there's a picture of you holding it. So, you know,
that's true.
that and the title, the end credits with your name on it. That's enough proof that I need. So tell me about your journey into filmmaking and editing. What brought that about? Where did you start? And where do you see it going from here?
I originally started out when I went to college thinking I was always into computers. Like when I remember being like a kid, my dad got like a, early PC that had like DOS on it and like just being super into like kind of geeking out about it. So I was always pretty good with them kind of naturally. And so I kind of knew I wanted to do something with computers. My mom was an artist, so I was always kind of into doing art as well. So I like drawing and painting and sculpting and doing that stuff. So I went to college originally, went into the visual arts field and thought I was going to do computer animation. I was really into like Pixar was kind of like becoming a big thing. And like, there was just like this, 3D animation was kind of taking off into this thing. And I was like very enamored with it and just had this sort of romanticized idea that like, oh, it'd be so cool. Like you can make whatever you want. I had this idea in my head, like, oh, I could be like a god. Like I could make a world and make characters and tell these stories. And as soon as I started taking classes in 3D animation, it was like a reality check. It was like very much like, oh no, you don't make worlds and characters. You make like the job itself was like, you make the fur on the coat or the buttons or the hair. Like it was like super specialized, which like, I was kind of like, oh, I don't think I like working on that like micro level. Okay. Much respect to people who do it. And I have actually gone back to 3D animation later. Now that tools have you can kind of get much more done with a lot less effort and a lot less people. But it was kind of this like, oh, that's so small. I wanted to tell like bigger things and do bigger stories. So I kind of started looking around and kind of like what else maybe I wanted to do. And then there was the arts program the film program was not part of the arts program. It was part of the journalism school.
Okay.
So, and the film program, I went to University of Southern Louisiana, USL. Right. It's called like ULala now. It used to be USL. We'd always call it University of Slow Learners. It was all the film stuff was part of like the journalism thing. So, or you took like communications and like it was, anything with cameras was like sort of learning to go into like broadcast news. So it was like kind of like learning to like shoot with like over the shoulder cameras and putting together like news packets. And then anything film related was very like theoretical. It was like, watch like film history. It was like, go watch movies, write about like what you thought about this, and like kind of just dissect different things. And it wasn't really like this is how you make a movie. This is how you make, independent filmmaking, or how you like, kind of get your hands dirty with it. The closest I found to that was when you're an art major, and I'm sure most schools do this, like when you're going through, you have to eventually prepare part of to graduate. When you're seniors, you have to put on like an art show. So if you're a painting major, you put on like a painting gallery. If you're, you put on different things. And so as you're, sophomore and junior, you have to like go to the senior ones to like kind of, see what they're doing and take notes and kind of plan for what you're going to do. And then I noticed that these ones that I was going to, there's always these rooms you could go into. They were dark and they had these screens and people were just playing weird, trippy, experimental art films. And I was like, oh, this is cool. What's this? And they're like, oh, this is called digital media. Okay. And I was like, I think I want to do that. So changed my major to digital media. Kind of sat in this class and like the guy who taught it was maybe like 80 years old. he was a cool guy. He had lots of cool background stuff on like teaching us like how to film stuff. He gave us some really good courses on like how to shoot interviews. But when it came to like editing and using the stuff, he was like, I'm going to show you how to edit. And I was like, oh, cool. And he was like, this is a VHS reel to reel editing. I was like, oh, wow, that's not what I was expecting in digital media. There was a brand new Mac lab that had all like Final Cut Pro was the big thing at the time. They had all these Final Cut Pro. Teacher had no idea how to use it. So basically I would go sit in and like bug the seniors who were in there working on stuff because they had taught themselves Final Cut. And I would just go and like ask questions and be like, hey, what's this do? What's that do? Like, so everybody kind of taught themselves Final Cut. That was kind of a good introduction to getting into this line of work because it's just constant problem solving. I mean, even when you think you've got everything, that like new things crop up and you're like, I have to figure out how to fix that. It's like, so it was kind of a good intro into like, oh, you're gonna have to like figure out how to like work all this stuff, like sort of the technician part of the job that I don't think a lot of people really, maybe some do, but I don't think a lot of people really get into or really understand that part. I think that some people romanticize editing a little bit. Is like, or even filmmaking in general is like, oh, I just want to tell these stories and I'll make this thing. And it's like, that is a huge part of it. But in terms of, you want to be an editor, there's also this technical side that you either have to do or have the money to pay somebody to do. Because if you don't know how to fix your computer or make your editing software work, you're not going to get much storytelling done. Worked on a couple, really got into making art films. Eventually I moved from Louisiana to Colorado. I got into rock climbing in college. It was mostly indoor gyms in Louisiana. There's not a lot of rocks outside. It's also not great temperature to be outside. While I was in college, went on a lot of camping trips, like to different places to actually climb outside. Went to Wyoming one time, went through Colorado. We drove like all night and ended up sleeping in Boulder on our way to Wyoming. And we're going to the Tetons. And then I just remember waking up sort of in the morning, I think we'd slept in the car and like just the sunrise over the Flatirons. And it was just like, oh, this place is so cool. Like it's so, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I graduate. I'm not sure exactly what a job is going to be in this, but I do think I want to live here for a while. So as soon as I graduated, made plans. I was working at a coffee shop, Starbucks that was in a Barnes & Noble. They had a really good transfer program. So like, props to Barnes & Noble and their transfer program. I was working at one in Louisiana. They helped me transfer to one here in Boulder, which kind of let me get a foothold here in town. And kind of did that for just like rock climbed and hung out for, I don't know, close to a year before I was like, I should probably figure out what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then started going out and looking for, I was just like, I don't know, internships seem like the way to go. So started just like I think at the time there was even like phone book. Like I don't think anybody uses a phone book anymore, but like I just like opened the phone book and started going through, just look at like video production services and just started going down the list. It was like just either calling or if they had an address, going visit places, give them a resume, be like, I'm interested in an internship. I had a pretty good handle on editing, or at least I thought I did at the time. Like I was like, I don't know, smart ass, but I was like, I know how to do this. But what I didn't really know anything about and hadn't had a lot of hands-on experience other than just me getting a camera and kind of figuring stuff out was like professional video production. I didn't really have any background in that. So I was looking to I was like, oh, this would be a good way to like kind of get into an internship. I want to do editing, but like, let me learn. I want to learn video production too, because I might want to do some of that. I also feel like I've always sort of felt that like in any job that knowing the jobs kind of around that job help you do your job better. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to understand, if I'm getting footage from people, like what's that like on the set? What's that experience like? So I started looking for internships where I could get on as like, I didn't know this term at the time, but as a production assistant was what I learned was what you want to ask for if you're looking to get that stuff. So I went to like, I don't know, maybe 20 different places, called maybe 30 different places, and kind of got the same answer over and over again. It's like, oh, we're not really looking for interns right now, or we have interns, we're full, like, we'll keep you on file, to just like straight people just ignoring me and not answering the phone. I was very discouraged. So I was like, well, let me go at this like another way. And I started looking for like events, like things that were like, where are people who are working in this industry, like, where are they going? Like, what are like, are there industry events? I didn't know that was a term at the time, but like, what are these kind of things? And then I started looking around and I found these different workshops that were being put on. There's a company called Boulder Digital Arts that was going for a while, run by Bruce. And the first one I saw, I kind of ran across, was like understanding HD production. And HD was like brand new. It was just coming out at the time. It was being taught by Wyndham Hanaway. I don't know if you know him. Sort of the video wizard in downtown Boulder. So it was like, and it was this very sort of technical thing that was like, other than like, cool, the resolution's bigger and this is that. And then like a lot of stuff that was like over my head. Like they had like a waveform monitor and different scopes. I was just like, I don't know what any of this means yet. But it was cool. I kind of hung out, like listened for a bit, and then also just kind of like checked out like who was there. I was like, these guys, these potentially people who might want a production assistant or an intern. And just kind of like after the thing, there was like a social thing, just kind of like talked and like introduced, like, I was a little shy at the time, but kind of just made an effort to like go out of my shell and like talk to people, introduce myself, kind of give a whole little shtick, like, oh yeah, I moved from Louisiana. I want to get into video production. I want to do post-production. I want to learn this. Kind of did that shtick, and then started talking to Bruce, who was running BDA at the time, and kind of like after the event was over, I just kind of started helping him put up chairs and just chatting with him. And he was just like, you know what? He's like, I don't think he worked for a company called People Productions at the time. And he's like, I don't think we have any room for an intern. He's like, but I'm the producer, a video producer and cameraman for them. He's like, I'll just hire you as a freelance production assistant. You come work for me. He's like, I like your personality. I think, you got a good work ethic. Like, he was like, come work. He's like, don't worry about being an unpaid intern. I'll pay you as a production assistant to like teach you stuff. And I was like, oh, that's great. Started doing that, and was still kind of working like a day job. Through that, like just being kind of like, I don't know, kind of one of the things like I tell students in my class, my classes are usually a mix of like younger people who are maybe either getting out of college, right out of college, and are looking to like get into the field or get into like find jobs. Or it's usually like maybe older people who are like maybe not retiring, but like doing like a pet project, like, oh, I've always wanted to do a documentary on fly fishing, or, kind of learning to do something, or just people like my company, I was the web designer and my company says I have to now edit videos. And they're like, now I need to learn. It's like how to edit videos. So it's kind of this mix, but a lot of the younger people will ask me, like how advice for like getting into the field. And like, admittedly, it's been a long time and things have changed a lot in like 20 something years, I guess, since I've been in Boulder. But I'd still say like the biggest thing I think is like, get out there, go talk to people, go to like, don't reach out. Formal channels are okay. Reach out that way. But like, I think if you can find a side door, like if you can find like a social gathering and like, be likable, be like somebody they want to talk to, somebody who seems like they're sincere, like people respond to that, I think, better. And you kind of get past that defense of like the front desk person who's like, oh yeah, no, we're full on interns, and like hangs up. So that's always my advice, is like find some industry event, find things where the people you want to work with are going to be at, and like be there, be part of that scene, be known. And then when you're in that scene, like I tried to make it a point to be super reliable. I have a big thing against like one of my pet peeves are like flaky people. So I've always strived to not be flaky. If I say I'm going to do something, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I do it.
Good on you.
And I don't know, just kind of like giving out good vibes. It's like, I was Johnny on the spot for every shoot. They would send me the truck. And of course, they'd mess with me. They're like, oh, go grab the C-24, the C-47s out of the truck and get the whatever. Like they used to do that. I used to work at a lumber yard, and guys would do that. They'd be like, oh, go grab the Skyjack out of Bay 5. And of course, like wander over to Bay 5 and like, hey, where's the Skyjack? I'm like, oh, that's over in Bay 6. And of course, like by the end of the day, they're like, there's no such thing as a Skyjack, dude. Like, so it was like a little bit of that, but people, I was very eager to like, yeah, what do you want to do? I'll do it, and like asking questions, and then started just meeting people naturally, like clients that People Productions is working with. I was also getting gigs through other people, because Bruce would work with people who were like freelance that would work for people, and they would get to know me and like me, and then they would be like, hey, I need a production assistant for a thing. So like go work with them. And then all the time I would be super helpful, but I'd always, if conversation came up, I'd always put out like, oh yeah, I want to get, what I want to do is post-production. I want to be into editing. Like I'm using Final Cut. I like, that's what I kind of like to do. I want to do that stuff. And then eventually started getting calls from people who were like, hey, I've got this project. I don't really have like the budget for like a company, like people to do it or somebody, but like, you seem young and hungry. That was a term I learned really quickly. Hungry was like you would do it for cheap. Yeah. And so I was like, yes, I am hungry, literally. And I started taking just kind of like low end editing gigs, like people like, paying whatever they could.
Yeah.
But it was good experience, and like kind of like learning, it was sort of my introduction to working freelance, kind of working for myself.
Okay.
So it was kind of like jumping in, without knowing anything. Just like, yeah, sure, I'll take your money. And I didn't really know to pay taxes on it at first, which definitely bit me a couple of years later. And then eventually it got to the point where I was getting enough freelance gigs that like I was like, I don't think I need to work at the bookstore and the coffee shop anymore. I was like, it was kind of getting annoying doing that. And I just remember one day I walked up, my wife also worked at the same bookstore, and I just remember walking up to her one day and now I'm being like, I think I'm going to quit today. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm getting steady gigs. I don't know if freelance is going to continue, but like, I don't think I need to do this anymore. And like, I think we can make it go. So I was like real nervous, but I was like that, quitting your day job to go do this thing that's like not guaranteed is a pretty big adrenaline dump. And quit, started just going at it freelance, putting everything, I think I invested in like a new computer at the time. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to like kind of have everything ready to go and hope, just kind of like if they build it, they will come, like, just have it all ready. And then started picking up a little, like more and more gigs, a lot of production assistant stuff, still freelance. That was like definitely helped paying the bills. But then more editing gigs were starting to roll in. I was getting like hit up by like people who make like local documentary producers who were doing stuff for like PBS, or like sometimes it was like cleaning up a documentary somebody had started, or maybe they had done kind of on their own, but we're like, I've made a mess in Final Cut. Can you help me clean this up? And then I think it gotten to the point where I was like doing okay, but was looking for some security. So I kind of started, like, I approached people who I'd been working with for a couple of years at that point as like a freelance production assistant. I'd been doing some freelance editing for them every once in a while.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, I'm looking to, I need like a full-time job. I was like, I'm looking for like some security. I want so I did a couple of interviews at a couple other places. People had me come in for an interview and they were like, we love you. You're great. We want to hire you. But now it's just not a really good time. Like would stick around, like it, things change. It was like, it could, could be 6 months, could be 5 months. It was like, just like hang out. And I left the interview pretty optimistic. I was just like, cool. Yeah, I can do that. Sure. Well, I don't really have a choice. Was like leaving that interview, and I want to say I had a cell phone at the time. I get a little mixed up of like where cell phone technology was at the time, but I want to say I had like probably like a Nokia or something. It wasn't like the iPhone yet, or maybe it was an iPhone. Either way, I've seen, this is my memory of it. It might be flawed. I remember getting in my car and I think I got a call from like a number that I didn't recognize, and I answered it, and it was this guy, Russ Wiltsey, who was, I believe, a professor at CU. I didn't go to CU, but I'm pretty sure he was a professor at CU for film for a while. Okay. And he was like, hey, I'm working on this documentary in Boulder with this guy named Louis. He gave me some vague details about like dolphins and whales, and I don't know if Japan came up at the time. But he's like, we're looking for assistant editors who, and your name came up. He was like, I think he got my name through like a producer who knew another producer who'd been working with me on who had been like a production assistant for. So it's just like name of a name, they're like, hey, do you know somebody? And they're like, yeah, that guy. Okay. And so went in for the interview, went great. And they're like, cool, we'll hire you full-time assistant editor starting, can you come in tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, perfect. Nice. So kind of just like fell into that job, but one of the other pieces of advice I give is like, you hear like about the film industry a lot, or at least I've always heard that like, oh, if you want to work in entertainment, a lot of it, especially high-end entertainment, it's about who you know. It's always like, do you know somebody, or who do you know? And like what I tell people when they ask me advice is like, I think that's part of it for like Hollywood and maybe, but like, I think in this world that we work in here, more locally and regionally, I think it's more about who knows you. So like, who did you leave a good impression on, who's going to then give your name to somebody else when they ask? Because that's how I've gotten most of the jobs that I've got. Somebody who's worked with me before, or somebody asked them who they would recommend, and like, oh, I know this guy. Like, he's really good, and he's a good guy. He's good to work with. So I feel like that's gotten me more work than anything else. It's just leaving a good impression with people. Like whenever you do work with them, like don't leave a trail of sort of scorched earth behind you.
Yeah. Something interesting I found. You worked at the Barnes and Noble on Pearl, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So you know what that was before? It was a Barnes and Noble on Pearl.
Before, well, I know the one that's there is the newer one. I worked when it was still connected to Whole Foods.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it was like before Whole Foods took over the whole whole building. It used to be like Whole Foods and then Barnes and Noble, and I was part of that strip mall thing. And now it's a separate store. But no, I don't know what was there before.
Movie theater.
Oh
big
yeah,
one.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. So
So
people, that's
I
right.
was
Somebody
like,
mentioned that.
it's destined if you count me. Like, I'm going to this Barnes and Noble, but I'm going to quit to go into the movies. So
Yeah, yeah,
path was paved.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, it's interesting. I found in life there's always like feels like serendipity, or it feels like, I don't know, synchronicity or something like that. And like, maybe that's part of it, but like, I don't know, I think if you, um, I'm not necessarily a believer in The Secret or anything like that, but I do feel like if you put your mind to something and put positivity out there and you put effort into like making something happen, I do think it helps things align in the universe, and like it kind of sets up opportunities, and that's on you to kind of seize those opportunities.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So why is editing such a powerful part of storytelling? Like you said, you can have this, but if you don't know it, you're gonna come out with a subpar film.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with kind of like why I like editing and like why I got into it, and I'll kind of go into kind of why I think it's important. I think they're kind of related. What I love about editing, and what's always drawn me to it from like the first time I sat down at a computer, made like a dumb little experimental art video, to like making animation, was just like, I love that, like when I'm done, I have something, there's like a finished thing. I have it, like, here's the thing, watch it. Like, I made this thing, like you can go now do something with it.
Yeah.
Whereas like I great respect to DPs and shooters and like lighting, like all that stuff is like amazing and required in art. But like at the end of that, there's like, it's just a bunch of footage, and like without an editor, that footage just is a bunch of footage. Like nobody really cares to watch 20 hours of footage. Like, so it's like, there's something I like about like, I've always liked to build stuff.
Okay.
I've always, my dad was like worked in like lumber yards and construction and hardware my whole life. So like I worked in some of that stuff and picked up very much like, I like to build things with my hands. Like when I was young, I built like computer desk and furniture, and like always built these shelves behind me back here. Like
Nice.
I've always liked to build stuff. I just kind of like that process of like sort of puzzling how to like fit something together and work it out. And so editing to me has always felt like building and constructing. Like, I actually have a timeline open on this other screen for a thing I'm working on. It's, when I look at it, I look at it as like blocks or Legos. Like it looks like a thing I'm building, and then just that ability to kind of build this, it's almost to me like solving a puzzle. And then when somebody watches it and goes, oh, that's good, it's like, cool. Like it strokes my ego. Look how good of a puzzle I put together. Like,
all right.
But I think editing is important in that it is, for a lot of cases, I'll kind of speak to what I do mostly. I work on everything, but I tend to do a lot of doc stuff.
Okay.
And or just to say nonfiction in general. With that, like the editor can be different in every project. I'll speak to kind of my experience working regionally and locally, not like LA, New York level documentary stuff, which can be different.
Okay.
For a lot of stuff, I'm the editor, but I'm really the writer. And like, I still, even when I'm doing like narrative script stuff, I am still kind of writing to some, like I'm kind of the final phase of the writing of whatever it is.
Okay.
And I don't know, like that level of control, maybe a little too much. Like
Yeah.
I like to like put my thumbprint on it. I like to like look at it and be like, I made that. And people are watching what I made, even though it's like a whole team of people who are, I know I'm aware of that. But yeah, I think it's like, having a perspective, being a human, having experiences, bringing your perspective to it. However you make those, I can give 30 people the same footage and they'll all edit me something different, because everybody's life informs the decisions they make, their taste informed, their personality informed. So I think having an editor who has a good understanding of things, especially whatever you're trying to do, or at least has that ability to kind of soak it in and kind of learn it and feel it. I think that's crucial to kind of getting your message across. Like it's the gap that like goes from like maybe this idea in a writer's head or a producer's head to like the audience. The editor is the one who's probably going to make the biggest connect. If he doesn't nail it, they're not going to connect to whatever they made.
Yeah.
So like the editing is like this filter. The editor is like the filter that we all see the stuff through.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And what separates a good edit from a great edit?
Ooh, good edit from a great edit. I think it's like, it's kind of like art in general. I think like if you're doing if you're a painter and you paint like 30 paintings, maybe one of those is like, that's where I would like clicked into the zone and was in the flow and like, this is great. All these other ones are good. They're technically good. And I think it's the same thing. It's like, I make a lot of videos. None of them are bad. They all are good. What makes it great is like, there's a synergy between like the footage has like things in it that are like talking to me, that are connecting to other things. Like I'm kind of just seeing bridges of like, oh, this guy says this thing, which is a perfect setup for this thing that happens later. And like pairing the, like, it's like kind of seeing those connections. Like the earlier I start seeing that stuff, like the more as I'm watching the footage, the more I get excited about, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be really good. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And I can still make something good, but like it's, you know, the heart of the piece still has to be in the footage. It's like I can take, you know, I have people that I work with that tell me my superpower is you can just give me anything and I'll make something good out of it. Like it's like that's somewhat true. I can make a comprehensive, nice looking, polished piece. What really makes it great is when like there's heart to the story. There's like something real in the footage that like that I can connect into and help magnify. You know, what makes a good corporate branding video? Does it look good? Does it sound good? Does it say their messaging points? Sure, that's a good video. Is it a great video? It's probably not changing anybody's life. Like, but so I think art, just in general, like good art has that ability to reach out, touch people, then connect with, like, recognize truth in it, see like a real human experience. So I think whenever you have footage and you're dealing with stuff that has that stuff in it, that to me, I know this has the potential to be great.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. You get in the flow state, you call it in martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You've done it enough times. You've had that repetition.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the other end of it, can editing save a bad shot or shoot?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Can it save a bad shot? Absolutely. Like that's kind of part of the puzzle piecing is like, oh, this piece is messed up. How do I be creative with it and make it fit? So individual shots, for certain, we can find creative ways. I used to teach a workshop called Fix It, or it was a talk really called Fix It in Post, where it was sort of talked about this dichotomy between, an editor today needs to be a storyteller and a technician. Like you can't really, if you want to do editing, you have to do both of those things. You have to be competent. You can maybe be more, one more than the other, but you sort of need to be somewhat both. And so I was kind of talking to this technical side because, like, obviously Fix It in Post is a very like famous saying you hear thrown around and shoots all the time, to the annoyance of a lot of editors who hear it on the footage afterwards and just like, oh, cool, yeah, we are, huh? But like that is a thing. So it's like, this is wrong. How do I fix it? So it's kind of like just showing examples of like what we could do with editing to like, change the color of a thing that was wrong, and like take the color of this thing that was supposed to be blue, and make it green, or, how to edit things to make it look a certain way, kind of like fake stuff to like make it feel like a thing happened that didn't really happen, or amplify the emotion, something that was maybe flat at the time. There is ways you can do that stuff. I still kind of subscribe to the formula of like grade in, grade out, good in, maybe grade out, but probably good, bad in, maybe good out. It's like the raw material, I think, is very much, will dictate the potential for where it can be. I think there's only so much you can do with really bad stuff. You can elevate it for sure, but you may get it from like here to here, but you're never really going to get it here. It's just, unless there's some really powerful emotional stuff. And in that case, I wouldn't be saying it's like bad material or like less interesting material.
Okay. And so this isn't your first class you've taught. So why do you like giving back to the film community by teaching these classes and sharing your knowledge? What do you hope to see the people get from you from these classes?
I've been teaching, so that company Boulder Digital Arts I talked about, where I kind of helped start me off. I ended up, after working on the Cove and kind of doing some other stuff after the Cove freelance, was approached by Bruce, and he was like, hey, like, I know you like editing, you like animation. We're looking to fill some teachers for these BDA workshops. So I started, I don't know, that was maybe 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And so I started doing day-long like Adobe Premiere workshops, day-long After Effects workshops on like editing and animation. And then I started doing like week-long sort of like boot camps. Here's like everything about, about Premiere to get started. Here's like kind of a primer booster into After Effects. And I was excited to do it. Honestly, if I'm being real honest, at first it was just like, oh, cool, like another like revenue stream. I was like, you're never really, as owning a company doesn't really feel any different than being freelance for the most part. There's still that like, oh shit, where's the next job going to come from? Where's the next paycheck going to come from? There's that never really, at least in my experience, that fear never really leaves. So it was like, you just kind of jump on. It's like, yeah, cool. Like I'm an expert in this. I could probably teach this, but I didn't really know like how I would do so I started putting it together. The syllabus and the kind of the information, it kind of just came together really easily. And I was like, oh, like had these little notes in my head that I was writing down. And then I didn't really know that I enjoyed teaching until like the first class where I kind of like set up. I was very nervous. Started teaching and like as soon as people started like asking questions and I was able to like answer, as soon as it became this like back and forth thing, and like people were like really appreciative of like, if not just knowledge I had and like experience, I'm like, oh, here, I've dealt with that before. Like, this is how I would deal with it. This is how people get, and just kind of seeing people like seeing it click for them, kind of like the same satisfaction I get when I'm working on a puzzle or working on an edit or an animation. And it's like, you hit that point where it's like, I solved the problem. I got it. That's it. And like that rush and like kind of seeing that happen for other people was like very cool. And I was like, oh, and like,
nice.
Honestly, it's just a bunch of nerds getting together and nerding out about stuff that they like and is cool. And like, that was a cool thing for me. I think being an editor can be, depending on where you work, I guess, but like it is sort of an isolating position to some degree. There is no getting around. Like, you just have to be a person in a room at a computer for hours looking at stuff with like nobody bugging you. Like, that's part of the job. So it was kind of this cool way to kind of like talk about that and like be with a large group of people and kind of like see them get excited about stuff. And like, it's always fun to be able to like somebody struggling with something, be like, here, try this. And they go, oh, that worked. That was so cool. Like, or just show them tools, like, oh, you've been editing music like this. Let me show you this thing. And they're like, oh my God, it's going to save me hours of time. And you're just like, yeah, cool. Like, it's awesome to be able to kind of disseminate that information and just, seeing people get excited about it. And I'm a nerd. I still get excited about it. So,
heck yeah. I mean, I do software development, so it's similar,
Yeah.
Like, you gotta be alone, but it's cool. Like when people are like, "Hey, check out this little thing." Like,
exactly, yeah.
Right. So,
yeah, so I think, yeah.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what is one skill you hope people that take the class will walk away with after the class immediately?
Oh, I have the worst answer for this, because I honestly, I think it's the most important, but it's probably the most boring and like the least sexy thing. And that's just like how to organize your stuff. Like, I spend probably not a ton of time on it, but I do go extensively into like, I don't say like, this is how you need to organize, but like, this is how I organize based on like my experience and pain that I've dealt with over like decade or two of doing this, that like things that have just bit me in the ass, things that'll come back to haunt you. For a while, a large part of what I would do is like, I get called in to like fix stuff. Like, people would start docs and they'd be like, I've got this thing and it's a mess. Can you come fix it? And so showing up to like work on projects, and even like, looking at some of my old stuff, just like organization is just like, it's usually the first big thing I notice is organization's a nightmare. People just have files spread out everywhere. It's like, it's all, and it's like, well, it's not really running. It's like, well, yeah, because you got things on like 30 different drives it's trying to pull from. And like, so it's like, I teach like, I think what I think keeps you editing, which is what we want to be doing, is like not having to deal with the headache of like our software not working properly or our system not working like optimized to be working the best it can. Because like, that's that technician part. It's like, I don't want to be doing technical shit. Like, I don't want to be problem solving technical stuff, but like the less I have to do that, the more I can be doing the cool, fun storytelling stuff. So like, here's my best practices for like keeping your files organized. Like, here's how you set it up in Premiere to like organize stuff so that in my experience, it works the best.
Okay.
And you can probably apply that to other, I think it's true with any editing application. It could be Resolve, it could be anything else. Although the class is specific to Adobe Premiere, just because that's what I work in all the time. But that's, there's that. I think that's kind of the most important part for my, I don't know, just stupid, nerdy, anal retentive stuff, is like how to keep your shit organized and keep your software running smoothly. But then I always love to show off like the new tools. Like, there's always some kind of cool new widget. Like, one of the big things, I haven't gone in a while, but I used to love going to like Adobe Max and like, or usually actually first NAB was first, going to NAB and like going to the Adobe booth, and like, they're always showing off these like, oh, look, we put this little thing in here. Now it does like, you can auto remix the music and just change the duration of the music and make it whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like that's like not super specific and there's not a lot of control, but for something fast, I just need to shorten something or lengthen something that can be really useful.
Yeah.
So like, just be able to kind of show stuff like, I just like to get the oohs and the ahs, like, that stuff's probably what people go over the most impressive. But I was like, if you just take away, this is how you organize your files in your folders, like I've made some progress.
All right. No, I agree. You know, organization is clear, clean mind, focused. There you go. So that's kind of where you start. That's the mindset when you start a new edit. How is this organized, and go from there?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that's like daunting and can be, it's just like I'm excited. I just want to hop in, start watching stuff and like pulling stuff out, and like I get that. But if you build it into just what you do, like I just have like the first thing I do when I get footage, I just have like a rote set of like things that I'm just like, I just do this, I do this, I do this, and then when I get to here, now I'm ready to start editing.
Okay.
So, and it's usually overlapping with like finishing the last project. So it's not usually just that, but like I kind of have a whole thing of like how I transfer it over to my RAID, how I like to have my folder structure. There's just a whole, like I call it like the ingest day. It depends how much footage it is. Sometimes it's not a day, but like the ingest process where it's like, it's not, I don't have to really think about it. I just have done it so many times, and I have my, it's like any kind of field, like medical or anything. It's like we have procedures. So you don't have to think about things. You just do procedure, and like things go the way they're supposed to go. So I have these just procedures for like how I handle stuff, so that I'm not investing a lot of mental power in it necessarily. Cause there's not these questions of like, well, where do I put this file, and where do I put this picture, and it's like, no, you made a home for everything. And then once that structure is there, I can just copy and paste, I have a whole empty a template, essentially a folder structure that I just copy and paste for each project, so that I can just, when I get the drives, I just kind of sort stuff into their appropriate piles, and that's where they live. But yeah, I think just having that creates less headache at the beginning, where you're like, how to work, because some people just don't like, how do I put this? This is footage. This is an image of something. Does that go with footage, or do I make a folder for images? Like, I don't know, getting rid of some of that stuff and just kind of getting it so that Premiere handles it nicely, I think is a essential step. It's like, again, it's not super sexy, not super glamorous, but it does keep things, it allows me to be more focused on like the cool storytelling part of it, doing an animation or putting together a cool little story or doing a cool music edit. I get to, I don't have to spend time like trying to fix, like, how come these files are offline? I don't know where they are. It's like, no, everything's working. I can just, when I sit down, I'm not troubleshooting. I'm just diving into the edit, and I'm able to kind of be more creative and more in the moment and tuned in with what I'm doing.
Nice. Yeah, that's basics of basics.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Excuse me. What trends are you seeing in video and editing right now?
Cool. A lot of, how do I politically answer this? I see a lot of content on social media, on YouTube, like stuff like it. I feel like there's this very big push right now, and I think everything's cyclical and things might change, but I feel like there's this big push right now to make things, I'll call it lo-fi, where it's like, oh, we just, whereas it used to be when I was coming up, it was like, how do we make it at the highest production quality possible? Yeah. Because there was this idea that like higher production quality brings an authenticity to something. It makes it feel credible, I guess. Maybe not authenticity, but like credibility is probably the better word. But I think there's this trade-off happening right now between credibility and what people are calling authenticity. And there's the way they're signaling or coding this authenticity is like low budget production. So it's like no longer do people want lights and cameras and like microphones that you don't just hold with your hand. That's a thing that drives me bonkers, is like seeing like the people buy this Rode microphone thing and then they just hold it in their hand, and it's like there's a clip on it. You can just clip it on, or you get the mic, and like it drives me. Maybe this is an old man thing, and like because like it maybe kids are just doing it to piss off old people. I don't know, but I think some kid just did it by mistake, and it became people just go, oh, that guy was popular. Just do. I think that's a lot of what's happening is corporations and companies are chasing what they see online, like kids doing, they were like influencers and people who are getting success on YouTube and TikTok or whatever they're on, and they're going, oh, what are they doing? Let's copy that. But just by virtue of copying it, they're trying to somehow borrow that authenticity. Sometimes I think it can work. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I feel like it's almost going the opposite direction because you're trying too hard to be authentic, which is not really what authenticism is. It's just being you, saying who you are, which I think that people do value that. I think there was a backlash against this sort of like overproduced, like Hollywood-esque, like it's too bright and shiny. It's a lie. It's like, it's I can't trust with this. This is just a guy with his camera. Like I trust this more Like people trust, TikTokers giving them news more than they trust mainstream media giving them news, and not whether that's valid or not, I don't know, but it's certainly a thing that's happened. So I think that's kind of one of the bigger trends that maybe is plateauing. I'm not sure. What's funny is now like that's the trend. You see the tools adjusting to that, and like now it's about like selling people like the ring lights and like the stuff to do your own guerrilla. We're just like creating production of another name, but like there's a whole industry now just on like that authentic look.
Okay.
Which maybe it's valid, maybe it's not. I don't know. I personally, as like someone who grew up like striving to make cool looking stuff and like make, slick production, like that's what I want, and that's what I'm gonna strive for, is something that looks good and feels good and sounds good. I don't know. It puts me off to a degree, but I certainly recognize that like podcast, I think bigger trend is this, like people always say like, how long should the video, we were doing meetings with stuff with people and they're like, oh, well, how long do you think the finished video should be? And I struggled for a long time to answer that, because it's like, what do I say? Because I was like, well, here's what research says. It says like at the time, like I was reading, it was like the average attention span is like, 90 seconds. And then if you look at YouTube analytics, people typically click off of something within the first 30 seconds or 10 seconds, or whatever it is. So it's like, do you use that to like say stuff? So for a while, maybe I was saying that. And then I kind of just started to be more honest with people and was like, I can give you a ballpark. Maybe it should be this, maybe it should be that. But like, honestly, like you give me the footage, the video should be as good as it's entertaining for, or as good as, as long as it's good for, is kind of, I think, the right word. And that for a while was like, people were like, yeah, but we still want like 90 seconds. We still want, analytics says this, so we want that. But what's funny is I think with the uprise of podcasting, people started to realize, it became very obvious that it wasn't necessarily attentions were shorter. It was that I think people starting to cater to that increased it. And that now you have this evidence that like, oh, some of the most popular podcasts are these 2-hour, 3-hour long just conversations between that are like not super highly produced for the most part. And people are just like watching them and listening to them all the time. So I think that's kind of opened the door for people to be a little more like, okay, we don't have to like fit into this like 90-second box or this like, sometimes we get, oh, we need 6-second things or like 20-second things. And like, I can see where they're coming from, but I do kind of also feel that by catering it to it so much, we're exacerbating the problem. We're making people's attention span shorter by catering to shorter attention spans, rather than like challenging people to like, no, like push your attention a little longer. Like if you're interested in it, if you're not interested in something, if you make a video, a person who's not interested is never going to watch it for more than a couple of seconds. Like it's not going to happen. I do like this trend that I hear less of this, but every once in a while I'll still hear like, we want to make this, we want to go viral. And I'm just like, it's not really a thing anymore. Like there's just so much stuff out there for something to break through. You're not going to make a thing that's going to go viral. Most viral things happen on accident.
Yeah.
So unless you're going to like, I don't know, like have a kid run up and kick in the balls and spill Jello over the floor, like I don't think you're going to want to do that for your corporate video shorts on TikTok. Like, so
we're working towards that idiocracy kind of.
More and more every day. I believe that. Yeah.
And do you think AI is also impacting this kind of lo-fi, like, that's too polished. That's not, I mean, even if you did it, with all your skill and you made something so polished, it would lead people to believe, hey, did Mike actually do that? Kind of, or did AI do it? Do you think that's
I don't think so yet. And just because I've done, being a nerd, like I'm super interested in the technology. Like I was kind of like, oh, like AI has probably got some potential to do some cool stuff. So I've played with most of the platforms just to kind of see, there's a very, very big fear in our industry about like AI is going to take our jobs. It's going to, we're all going to be out of work. Like people, every time Sora puts out a new thing, like I hear camera guys left and right be like, that's it. Like we're done. Like sell your cameras. Like, what are we doing? So like, I think it's essential to like, for me to understand that stuff. Cause like, if it is going to affect my job, is it really? And like the best way to know where it is to like play with like the commercially available tools that are there. So it's like, what can I say? I'm not like a software developer. Like I know you can do a lot with the Stable Diffusion engine if you know coding and you can train your own neural network. And like, I've seen some really impressive stuff, but that's probably a technical level above where I am. As an editor, I'm not looking to get there. I want to work with like what's most likely going to be what's going to happen is tools that people in my position are going to be using that they just pay, like consumer tools or prosumer tools that people can pay for. So I'm like, what can they do? let me see like what can I do with this? I'm pretty savvy. Like, can I replace a cameraman with this? Can I just make something? And the answer is mostly no. I mean, you can make cool stuff, and I've made some pretty cool things. Probably the coolest I've made is like using like reference footage, like kind of shooting something like a scenes for something, and then taking that footage and feeding that to AI, and then having it restylize that footage. So it's using like motion reference from like performances, which is kind of just like a new fancy way of like motion capture. But then like having it be able to like put, totally reskin just like a guy walking down a hallway into like a guy walking down like a futuristic, back alley in some dystopian city. It's pretty cool stuff. But it's a very like nobody's really asking for that. It's usually like hey, we've got this dump truck that our company sells, and we want to sell to data centers. So can you take some footage of our dump truck and make it look like it's on like the site of like a data center being built, so we can like market that to people doing that? It's like more mundane. It's never like super. People never really want you to do the cool, interesting thing that I mean, it's not that that's not a challenge and that's not interesting, but it's like, yeah, but this could do anything. If you just want me to do that, like we could just drive a dump truck out to the site and film it. It'd be way easier. I generally find with most stuff, because every once in a while I have a problem. I need to do something, do a visual effect or something for, and it's like, well, could AI do this? So I'll typically start kind of doing it manually, I guess is the way to say it, like the old school, but just the manual way of doing it. And then I'll kind of sidetrack and kind of like, all right, let me get it going on. Let me just try it with AI and see. And like what I found is that AI can do some cool stuff in terms of the video generation, but it's such an iterative process right now. And like, I can't imagine that will change anytime soon, just despite what the companies are hyping and want you to think, because they very much into selling, because they've already sold managers across the globe that like this tech, you can replace your employees with this stuff. I think people are quickly finding that's not the case. By the time I get the AI to do what I want by giving it instructions, like I'm trying to talk to a toddler, I'm like, no, don't put feet in the shot. And it's like, you want more feet in the shot? I'm like, no feet in the shot. Oh, you want 6 feet in the shot? It's like, no feet in the shot. Like it does. So like by the time you get it and like learn how to talk to it, it's like 2 days could go by trying to just perfect and like having to re-render and it's not even quite the same as like when you're working with 3D animation or any kind of animation re-rendering, because at least you're making these tweaks and what's going to happen, versus like when the AI re-rolls the dice, it could just iterate that thing you told it to, or it could just go rogue and like make something totally different. Then you're back to square one or trying to get back to that last thing. By the time it's done, I probably could have just made it. I probably could have just done it, built it in 3D, like done the anime, whatever it is, like, or worst case scenario, like just really, like I had a guy who was like, I want a shot of like people holding hands, like walking down this beach. And I was like, well, maybe AI can do that. But of course, at the time, and maybe it's gotten better, but it's like AI with hands. So it was like 98% perfect. The lighting was amazing. The color was amazing. It looks super cinematic. It's just like this amalgam of like 30 fingers and like melting into each other. And it's just like, cool. It's all great, except for like the most important part, which is like, I could just, it was like, I could keep working at this, or I could just like get 2 people, go to a thing with a camera at the right time of day, just get it. And then it's, it's done. So I don't think that's going to change because the problems it has, I think, are, I don't think it can, the AI doesn't have any idea of physics. It doesn't have any idea of like spatial relationships. It just knows what kind of we think a picture looks like based on what it's trained on. It doesn't understand like, collisions and things like that. It can do a pretty good job of faking it, but like it doesn't really. And I don't think what they have now is ever going to solve that. I think the only way for it to really solve that is probably AGI, which I don't know where that is, but like it has to have a recognition of what an environment is, what a thing is, like with the mass of things, like the level of understanding to truly get it right is just like, I think it's going to, but at the same time, I do think there are tools that are coming out of it that are extremely useful. There's like just in Premiere, the generative extend, like if you have a shot, it's you just need like 5 seconds more, you can like pull the shot out and it will try to render out, create new frames based on that shot. Like that's a useful thing. There's a lot of things that people are calling marketing as AI, because that's the hype, that aren't really AI. They're just kind of cool, advanced, like machine learning. But like still very cool. I have tried a few just because there are some like AI editing applications out there. I was just like, okay, cool. Like I'm sure companies that are hiring me are certainly looking at this stuff and going like, well, do we need to hire a Mike or an editor? Can we just get our footage and dump it into one of these things and have the AI edit stuff for us? So of course I'm trying that stuff. I'm like, well, what can it do? And almost every time, I mean, it makes things that are, this is like the one in particular, or the ones that I've looked at were like, all right, I've got a bunch of interviews. Let me dump those in. and then like have it like, and you can kind of like talk to your transcripts like in an LLM format, and which ideally seems very cool. Just that on its own is actually the coolest thing from it, is like being able to just like an advanced search of your transcripts. Instead of like looking through each transcript, I can just go like, hey, pull up all the sound bites where people talk about horses. And it's like, cool, here is across 20 interviews, every sound bite about somebody talking about horses. Like that in itself is that's super cool. But these programs usually also offer like, cool, do you want me to make like a documentary out of this? Or do you want to make like a social media video? So like you can kind of give it some of the instructions to make things, which I've tried to like varying success. Almost never, like it picks sound bites that are okay sometimes, like maybe the words make sense, but when you watch the clips together, they don't really make any sense contextually. And then even if it does do like nails kind of the like, you know, practicality of the story, like, you know, A, B, C, D, gets the right things in the right order, it doesn't have any like spirit to it. Like it doesn't have like it's missing me. It's missing like the human elements. You know, it's just like words it thinks make sense in a thing. Like it's not, there's no timing, there's no pacing. And it's like, I of course can go back and put that stuff in, but so I've done it in different ways where I've had it like make a thing and like, okay, can I do a cleanup pass and like put me back into it? And it doesn't, by the time I get it to where I want it, I could just edit it myself. I should have just done it. It wasn't any faster than me just editing it myself, or marginally in what I save in that like time is not worth it, because the biggest chunk of time for any editor, anything, is like going through your raw footage, like looking at all the stuff. Like that's, you have to do it. There's no way to not do it. And if you're not doing it, I think you're doing a disservice, because like, I don't know what's in there until I look at everything, and that colors how I see other stuff. And if I'm just dumping it into AI and just taking what it gives me, like I'm now lacking that security of knowledge of like, well, what's in the stuff I don't know. And the only way for me to know that is to go back and look at it, which of course negates all the time I save dumping it into AI. So I think the like an advanced search feature that we're like an LLM interface to your footage is awesome. I don't necessarily trust it in terms of like, there's stuff like B-roll tagging and stuff where it can like analyze the picture and tell you like, that's cool. I don't know. I don't really need that part. Like going through the B-roll is the fun part. Like that's where that's the cool stuff. Like I want to do that part. I don't need AI to do that. I like, that's the footage I want to go through. Like it's slogging through the interviews that are kind of like getting those, like finding those good pieces. That's the kind of slog. But even in that slog, there's value. It's like, cause now I've kind of stored it all. Even though I don't like innately like photographically remember everything, it's in there. And like I kind of have, it's like, oh wait, yeah, that person said a thing, or they made a comment over here. It's like, you know, it's all kind of up here and I can make connections. Whereas like the AI is not making those connections. It's just going like, well, this sentence kind of makes sense after this sentence and kind of makes sense after this sentence. And it's like, you know, same idea of like arguing with the generated video. It's like, oh, this is great, but have it start with interview 2. And it's like, gotcha. And it comes back and it's like interview 4. And it's like, no, start with this line at this time code from interview 3. And it's like, okay, cool, interview 4, here we go. And it's like, no. Like fighting with it is like, it's like trying to talk to a toddler. It's like, it's really stubborn. It's like, and it's like, you make this mistake. I think everybody's anthropomorphizing these things more than they're more than it's warranted. You know, because they put on, they have a fake like personality that they kind of speak to you with, but like it's not it doesn't know, it doesn't do it. People like assign too much power to these things that like they don't really have that much power. They do these impressive party tricks for right now, and I think what they can do with like collating data is amazing, which I think is what they should be doing. Again, that LLM interface with the transcripts is great. You know, crunching big numbers. I think there are a lot of tools. I don't know if you're familiar with Corridor Crew. They're guys that make like YouTube videos, like visual effects and things like that. They just released this open source. He was like, you know, he's got a really cool video of like, how can I redesign green screen keying software? Because nobody likes keying green screen. It's always a pain in the ass, especially when we're doing it kind of not in the Hollywood circuit. Like you're always dealing with stuff. It's always like a bunch of little problems. So he's like, how can we reimagine this using AI? So he kind of goes through the process of building a green screen tool with AI that doesn't key green. It just knows what's in the foreground, what's in the background. And kind of goes through the whole process, they have like an open source application they released out there that like you can go and use, and you know, I've heard it's got its problems, of course, but it's fairly new. But like, it's like this whole other way of like looking at keying out backgrounds without actually using the color data.
Nice.
So I think we will benefit in our positions from stuff like that.
Yeah, I've when on the software development side doing front end work, when you try to make a nice, pretty website, it doesn't have that artistic eye. It can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just like at a certain point, it's feeding itself. The references are just other things that it's made, so it just keeps starting to make stuff that looks like everything else it's made.
Yep. Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of the show. Is there anything
Sure.
that we've missed that you'd like to talk about? Anything you want to, give a boost to that you're currently working on, or somebody you're working with?
We just had a film that's wrapping up in film festivals called Building on the Edge. It's an architecture film about students who go to Antarctica to build a research station for scientists studying penguins and seals there.
Nice.
We're trying to figure out, a home for it right now. So like trying to get it streaming somewhere available for people to watch, the general public to watch who aren't going to film festivals. We don't really know where that's going to be yet. We've got another editing workshop coming up. I'm currently doing editing workshops with the Chamber of Commerce in Boulder now.
Yep.
Sign up. We've got one coming up there. I occasionally do like a documentary workshop there, kind of the basics of documentary filmmaking for people who are looking to get into it. Maybe don't know what they're doing, no idea. But the editing workshop is kind of the same one. At the heart of it's kind of the same one I've always taught for almost a decade now for Boulder Digital Arts. It's just sort of cores of like fundamentally the technician part, like how do I use the software the best way to get it so I don't have to really like troubleshoot it. And then throughout that process, I try to like sprinkle in some like little bit of editing theory here and there, like, cut on action, different kind of things that like just editors kind of innately start to do. And I also think one of the biggest things is just experience. Like people, usually most of the questions are like, hey, like, what do you do when a client says this? Or like, we always have to do this. Like, how do you handle that? So like, I think that's kind of the fun stuff to get into in the workshop, is kind of just being able to sort of relate my experience and kind of my, sort of some of the trials that I've gone through and how I figured out how to like, maybe not solve those things, but like at least get another perspective on like, hey, I work in this industry. This works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but at least, here's a tool you can try.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike. Remember, everyone, go to sign up to the class. There's one spot left. You can find Mike's work on Pixel Mill Studios, and you can see his new film when it comes out, and many more. Is there any other place we can see your films?
Trying to think if it's playing in any other film festivals right now. I don't think so. I think we're currently just on the search for a home for it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're looking for a home. So if you got a home, we're Building on the Edge.
Cool,
reach out to Mike. Thank you very much, Mike. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Corey. You too.
All right.
Bye.
Stop. Yeah, I'm gonna just